Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're starting with a list of the materials we're going to be using today. First, we have our scarf here already laid out and pinned onto our art board. Secondly, we have rubber gloves. We're going to keep those on at all times while we're using the paints and dyes, as they do stain your hands. Eventually comes out, but not too soon. We're going to work with two brushes here today. We have a Sumi brush, which is a silk painting brush, carries a lot of fluid. The paint that we're using is a water consistency, so this carries a lot of fluid without dripping too often, and it has a fine tip. And secondly, we're going to be using a sponge brush. We're also going to be using a couple different fabric permanent markers and some metallic gold paint. Here we have a sponge that we use to blot off excess water in between rinsing the brush, and after you put some dye on it, just dab it on there a bit so that it doesn't drip. Also some clean water. And our tray of paints. The sections that are closest to you will be the ones that you're using. And the other side is for the other person on the other side of your table. We start out with a green towards the screen. And then we work our way down from red, purple, a sienna brown, and yellow on the end. So we're going to go ahead and start with the Sumi brush and use that to fill in the leaf shapes on the pattern that we're working with. And basically, we're going to cover all of the leaf shape patterns by filling in the middle. These are resist lines that have been applied, and that they're going to work to hold the color back so that it doesn't seep into and bleed through into the other areas. If you cover the middle section and let it spread by itself, move on to another leaf. You can always come back and add more on if you need to, but let it run to the resist line by itself. You can always add more if you need to a little bit later on. Plus, we're also going to add a little bit of yellow into the middle of all these leaf shapes that's going to blend and create some texture and shading in the leaves themselves. So you're going to go ahead and go in and do all the leaves with the green. You notice how I leave the edges white. It does eventually run all the way to the edge. We're also going to go up one side of the vine-like swirls that we have. Go up one side of them with the green. It's not necessary to go right up to the line also with that. It will bleed into that. And this is an abstract that we're doing, so there's no right or wrong, and nothing is going to be a problem, really. This is just a suggestion on how to create some depth and some interest and the use of color. And we go ahead and go all the way the length of the scarf on the vines with the green. I'm just doing the one side of the scarf here for this demonstration today, so you can see a little bit closer up what we're working on. I'm going to go ahead and rinse that out and move on to the yellow, the other end of the tray. And you're going to take a little bit of yellow and just put it right in the center of each of the leaves. And that is going to blend in and move the green, the darker green, to the edges. You'll see it takes a few minutes for that to happen. But it's going to create some depth and some interest in the leaves, shadowing, shading. And now you're going to go ahead with that while you're in that yellow and go ahead and just randomly put some yellow on all of the background of the scarf, here and there, into the green around it. Plenty of spots. We'll be going in also with doing the same thing with the red, the purple, and the sienna. And then we're going to go right ahead in with that purple right along the other side of the vine and the resist line, as well as random other sections of the scarf that are still white and on top of some of the other colors also. When we get all of the white filled in, making sure that we got all the edges of the scarf, there's no white edges left on the outer edges of the scarf, you can go ahead and blot this with paper towels. Okay, so we're back. Step 2. Everything is dried up nicely here. We're going to go ahead in with the yellow and the Sumi brush and put a little texture into all of our background, as well as a little extra yellow dab right in the middle of the leaves. That's going to go ahead and push green more towards the edges, and it gives us a lot of nice shading, as well as going ahead in across different areas of colors. And a yellow is a bully color, so it's going to push some other colors around and be pretty interesting. If you notice, you still have a lot of white areas where the resist has been doing its job. It's been working. It's keeping colors separate, but we also want to get that covered to some degree with this paint. Whatever has not been covered with this paint, we're going to go ahead in with the markers afterwards and fill in all of that leftover white. But this yellow, just spreading it randomly, is going to create some, looks like dark hard edges. That eventually, when we rinse out, will not stay that way. It's just meant, it's basically to move some color around and create some texture. But you will not end up with those hard edges, so don't worry about that. So go ahead and just place some random strokes across the background, and again, pay close attention to try to get some of those white resist lines. And we're going to go through the whole scarf with that, and we're going to take about, this is only going to take about 5 to 10 minutes to dry before we come in for our final step. Okay, everything's dried nicely now. We're going to go ahead in and shake that acrylic paint that we have, the metallic, and also go in with the Sumi brush and mix it. Well, the metallic particles tend to stay at the bottom, so you're going to go ahead and mix that good with your brush, and then just go ahead in and different areas you'd like to highlight, put a little swirl of metallic gold on there on some of the leaf areas, other areas of the background. Some of this will lose some of this in the rinse process, And unfortunately, it also only will work on one side of the scarf. The other side, you're not going to see the metallics on the back side. But it does create an interesting effect, and worth the time and effort to do it. A few minutes, just put a little acrylic paint on there. And then we're going to go ahead and, after this, with the markers. It's so interesting. You see the way the colors have moved and pushed each other around and created an interesting marble-like background effect. And now we're going to go ahead and take, starting with the gold marker, we can go around as well as make any kinds of doodles and shapes we'd like to in the background. Also go around that white resist that's still showing, and either with the gold or the black or a combination of both, outline those leaves and the vines to just cover that white. The scarf has also, since it's been wet and painted, stretched somewhat. You can either go ahead and tighten it up by removing the pins and replacing them, or as you're working on certain areas with the markers, you're just going to want that to be a little bit tight. So use the other hand to hold it tight while you're working on small areas. And we're going to add some detail in around the leaves, maybe some swirls in the black and in the gold in the background area. Of course, at some point, this is your own original artwork, and it's something that didn't exist before you were here today. I think that's pretty exciting. So I want you to go ahead and sign your name or your initials. Usually we put it in one of the bottom corners, but however you choose. You can also put any type of writing, any personal messages, lyrics to your favorite song, dates, anything. This is a very personal process here. So go ahead and have fun with it. Just add whatever you like. Ultimately, you wear it as a scarf, and you may know that you have these certain messages to yourself or to a loved one, whoever you're making the scarf for, but nobody else really actually sees that. It's all about color and placement. Okay, so we're done here. We're going to remove the pins from your scarf and place them, push them all the way in to the sides of your artboard. Make sure you get them all. And one by one, we'll go around and we're going to come and take these scarves, rinse them out for you, soak them for a minute in a beautiful softener that we have, commercial fabric softener. It's going to make them feel smooth and silky. And you can go ahead afterwards, go ahead and get rid of this paper that's underneath. That's has lots of dye on it, and we're going to use a newsprint type paper to lay the scarf out on, roll it up, and press it out. That's going to take a lot of moisture out of the scarf, and it'll be ready for ironing for you, and you'll have a finished product. So we're just going to lay that paper down and go ahead and take the scarf. You can actually fold it in half. While it's wet, it's kind of hard to get it flat, but you're going to go ahead and open it up, and as flat as you can make it, either in half or all the way across, we're going to lay that out on top of the paper. And kind of cover it with the paper folded in where it needs to be, but roll it up. And when you get it fully rolled up, go ahead and just press down on it. Most of the moisture from the scarf will then be absorbed into the paper. You can unroll it right away and go ahead and iron that out or let it air dry.